Hello, welcome to Modern Sages. We are so excited to be talking to you today about creating sacred space as well as moving into sacred ceremony. We created this portion to put it into two halves. So the first half, we'll be talking a lot about creating sacred space. And then next week, we'll continue on our conversation all about sacred ceremony and how we apply that within our shamanic perspectives and helping bring a lot of healing and comfort in that space. So we hope you enjoy this podcast. And once again, we will have a second half to this next week.
Welcome to Modern Sages Podcast.
I'm Jen Gilbreth.
And I'm Candace Coons.
With over 25 years combined, we have delivered messages from beyond,
explored ancient healing wisdom, and integrated these profound teachings into our everyday life.
We are passionate about creating new ways of being human in the modern age by integrating the wisdom of the past with the present and coming into remembrance of who we truly are.
Are you ready to change your relationship to life itself? If the answer is yes, your journey begins now. So today on Modern Sages, we're going to be talking about the importance of sacred ceremony. And this is, of course, one of my favorite subjects. Sacred ceremony has made such a difference in my life on so many levels. And so today we're just going to dive in and we're going to talk about the ways that we can create sacred ceremony and sacred space and all the amazing healing benefits on all levels.
Yeah. Can I just say, in my experience, since working with you, learning a lot about creating sacred space and opening up that ability has transformed who I am. And it's something that my soul craves now. It's like, I need to have that more in my life. And I feel like as we get caught in the day-to-day things, it's almost like we forget about that essence of who we are. And creating sacred space really helps remind us that we are a spirit having a physical experience, but also it's creating sacred space, creating sacred purpose to help us navigate through this life a little bit more easily as well.
Yes. And one of the most pivotal reasons, or the biggest reasons of why creating sacred space and ceremony is so powerful is because you're really focusing in your intention. You're giving all of your energy, all of your focus and intention on creating that sacred space, or you're using all of your energy and all of your intention to do that sacred ceremony. And when you focus in on your intention on such a strong level for a period of time, the amount of power, the amount of energy that you are able to surround yourself with, that support of the universe around you, it increases because everybody talks about the power of intention. And this incorporates the power of intention, and it does it over a period of time where you're really focusing in on a certain intention.
Yeah.
And when you do that, when you're aligned with spirit, whether you do the tube of light meditation or another kind of a meditation to be able to align yourself to your higher self, and you call upon the directions and you call upon your creator and you're smudging, and all of that energy and all of that power of intention and magic that is inside of you gathers the energy of the universe around you. And that is where the magic happens. The healing transformations is in that space. And I was so excited to talk about this more because I feel like a lot of people don't incorporate the sacred in their lives. They kind of just either don't think about it or they kind of brush it under the rug.
And I know a lot of where maybe we have a specific structure or something that we participate in weekly or monthly. And it's kind of just sometimes it's easy to kind of just show up and not fully have your spirit involved in it. And it's almost like when we're kind of in pilot mode, when we're not fully aligned, it kind of cheats us out of fully experiencing this human journey.
Yeah.
And sacred space, creating sacred ceremony brings in such healing in such a magnified way that it's so beautiful.
It is. And what's so cool about it too is that you don't have to wait,
Yeah.
to that once a week. You can incorporate this within the week whenever you feel called upon to do it. If you're feeling that something needs healing in your life, or something needs extra focus, or you want to draw something into your life, you can create sacred ceremony at any time.
Yeah.
And I love using the natural cycles of the moon and the seasons. And I like to incorporate that into sacred ceremony, but you don't have to. But I think that anytime you incorporate things, or you integrate the seasons, it's almost like it increases that energy of intention and visualization by saying, okay, I'm going to do it at this certain time. And I'm going to, if I'm going to do it the new moon or the full moon, or at this season or that season, or this time of the year, that time of the year, and you're incorporating sacred ceremony, thinking about that, it does increase the level of intention, which increases that level of energy or power for that sacred ceremony, though. So there is benefit to it, even though you don't have to do it.
Yeah, it kind of is like the cycle of life, though, right? Is everything is in a cycle. We see the phases of the moon, that's a cycle. When females have their moon time, that's also a cycle. Life and death, like our whole experience in this physical form is a cycle.
Yes.
It's a rebirth. It's a rejuvenation of letting go, releasing, and then creating new. And so I feel like creating sacred space almost gives you extra strength or extra power to connect into that cycle that is naturally part of what we're all going to be experiencing in this physical journey. Yes. And so it brings in such a great dynamic of really working with the universe, working with God's love, working with your ancestors, as well as helping bring these things into form. Because as we know, we're a multidimensional being, right? Physical, mental, emotional, spiritual. But also when things hit into our energy system, it almost is like we have spirit, then it goes into the energetic, then it could hit our emotions, and then we could feel it physically. So not only that is we have this energy level, we have this aura, this bubble around us that also has levels or cycles in which it integrates into our space. And so I feel like it's a great way of releasing and also rebirth, rejuvenating, regenerating in a way that you're not leaving your energetic debris everywhere. You're creating the sacred space to release, to cleanse, to set intention, to heal, and then you close it back up. Yes. So that it's not just lurking around wherever you go.
Yes. So let's talk about how you create sacred space.
Yes.
Because I know some of people in our audience may not know exactly what that is. And when a shaman calls or creates sacred space, they call upon the directions and the powers of the directions. And the directions are all connected in with an element, whether it be air, fire, water, or earth. And we work with not only the 4 directions, but we also work with above, below, and center. So the 7 sacred directions. And above is connecting to the Great Spirit, or your Heavenly Father, Mother, God, force, energy. And it also connects you with the angels and those who assist you from above. And then below is when you connect with Mother Earth. And in the Incan shamanic traditions, they call her Pachamama, which I love saying that. Just saying
I love
that,
it too.
Pachamama. It just feels so good to even say that. But when you honor below, you're connecting with Mother Earth and everything that she has that is a part of her body or that she creates. So we honor the mineral kingdom, we honor the plant kingdom, we honor the animal kingdom when we call upon below. And then the seventh direction is your heart. It's like, if you think about the center of a wheel or the spokes of a wheel, it's like that center point that connects with all of those different directions.
And I love the symbolism of that too, because it goes back into showing that we are connected. Like our heart is that divine connection to spirit, to Mother Earth, to all of the elementals. It's connected to our gifts of spirit. It's connected to everything. Yes. And when we're fully connected in our heart center, we're able to fully be experiencing life here.
Yes.
And so when it's like we align all of those areas above and below, and then we really bring that power back within ourselves to say, hey, I'm claiming all of this. I'm a part of this creation. Please give me the words or the energy or the space to like remember and move that into my space. But it kind of brings the power back within you because you are the universe.
Yes.
You are God's love. Everything is not separated. And so it kind of helps you bring that back into your space of like, I'm connected, I'm divine. And now what? Right.
Yeah. And there's so much sacred symbolism, and the symbolism of the circle, or sacred geometry talks about this. And you'll notice that the tribes, that all the indigenous cultures, they would meet in circles and talk about the power of the circle. Or you have the drum that's shaped like a circle, which connects you with your ancestors, with how you are connected with all things. So the circle represents that unification, us and our connection, that we're all one, that there is no separation between us and the divine, or us and our ancestors, the ones that are here and the ones that have crossed the veil. And it doesn't disconnect us from our connection to Mother Earth, or and then we can never be separated from our divinity. That is the center of the circle. That it's like, even when shamans create sacred space and they move in a circle, they create the fire at the center of the circle, which represents your divine nature, that spark of spirit, the light that is within you. And so it's like when you do sacred ceremony and you burn things in that sacred fire, it's so symbolic. It's so powerful because it represents the transformative power that is inside of you, that at any moment you can recreate, that you can connect and you can transform into something else.
I love that. And even thinking about in the olden days, a lot of houses were patterned around the fire to keep the family warm, the hearth of the family, the hearth of the house. And so ever since ancient times, indigenous, as well as people who were going throughout making houses, like it's always been a part of our experience. Like this has always been a part of humankind in just different places throughout the world. And so it might show up in one way somewhere in different parts of the world, and they might have different sayings or different traditions, but ultimately it's holding the same intention, which I think is so beautiful. It's so symbolic that we're all one, we're all connected. Creating sacred space isn't something foreign or unknown. In fact, it's part of who we are. It's this holy space.
Yes, it is. And it brings you, it's like every time you connect with a direction, it makes you so hyper aware of that interconnection. Like, for example, like when you call upon the East and you're thinking about what East represents, which is, it's the space of new beginnings. You think of the sunrise coming up every morning and the opportunities to be reborn, to change directions, to see things from a brand new perspective, that bird's eye view. It connects you with the element of air. And you think about being like an eagle, rising out of your problems and seeing things from the overall perspective instead of being caught in the middle of the forest or the maze of your life. And so it reminds you, it's like when you call upon the directions and you create sacred space, it reminds you of those pieces of wisdom that those directions teach us. They remind us to say, take yourself out of the drama. Try to kind of see things in your life from an overall bless you. Energy is moving, air.
Ooh, I apologize.
But it's like East reminds you of like taking yourself out of the drama of your life and really seeing things from an overall perspective. And then you move into the South, which for us in our shamanic training, we do that as fire because of our location on the planet. Because sometimes the shamanic cultures, they'll switch the elements, like West and South will sometimes be switched. Like South will be water and West will be fire. But for us, the ocean is closest to the West. So it's like we correlate the West being the element of water. But when you think about the lessons of South, and it's like, what would we do when we don't have passion, when we don't have a reason for doing what we do in life. We don't have a vision that east brings us, and
Yes.
we don't have a fire to get us to move forward, or we don't feel confident, which many of us have struggled with issues of self-worth and not feeling good enough. Fire gives you that courage.
The extra strength.
Yeah, you've got this. Just do it. Do it. And it's the alchemical fire of facing your fear, just like what you were saying on our last shows, feel the fear and do it anyway.
Yeah.
That energy of fire, when you feel fear and you do it anyway, that is the stuff. That is the alchemical fire that transforms a human being and causes them to expand in themselves and to learn something about themselves and to grow.
Yes. And it almost is like sometimes you have to burn things down to create new. Yeah. So I feel like going into the South also helps you sometimes break down those things or let those things go so you can. It's like you see things from a different perspective from the East, and then the South really helps you kind of refine that, move through that, and bring up this new passion within.
It's like the phoenix rising out of the ashes, transforming into something. You had to crumble the old, the old frame or the old constraints, the old beliefs. We were talking about this earlier, because when people shift from the head to the heart, which is the longest journey you'll ever take in this life,
over and over and over again.
Absolutely. Yeah. But when you've created a life of shoulds and ought tos and guilts and shame and all of these different energies, and you're healing and you're coming back into yourself, you're coming home to yourself, to the heart, and you're saying, it's not what my heart wants. This is not how I want to express myself, or what is really in alignment with what my heart desires to create for my life. There is a turning point where, when you really stand in your truth, where sometimes it'll feel like things are crumbling around you, because it's like all those old systems and relationships and things that you created from that mindset of the shoulds and I ought to do this, and guilt or shame or whatever, it created a life. It created relationships. And there is a point of shedding where you have to kind of allow that to fall, so that the phoenix can rise out of that fire and be aligned, and then create a life that represents that energy of the heart. Good. And so it's like, sometimes when that transition happens, we're like, oh my gosh, are we doing the right thing?
Yeah, it's a little overwhelming.
It can be a little overwhelming.
People might view you as someone who maybe is losing your marbles a little bit. But ultimately, we came here, and in the Aquarian age, it's all about living a heart-centered life. And sometimes we have to let go and fall back and surrender. We were talking about this. We're filming a Gifts of Spirit course. And at one point we were talking about falling back and surrendering into your gifts, the trust, instead of trying to force it. And it's almost like when we can surrender and allow the fire to consume, and then we can move forward powerfully instead of trying to control where the fire goes. Because we know if something is burning, you can't control that fire most of the time, especially if it's in like a house. It's going to do its thing. It's going to be rampant, but it's so beautiful at the same time. When we can surrender and let go, we don't have control, but ultimately we in this physical form want to control things. We want to control what it needs to look like versus what our spirit truly came here to learn. Sometimes is different than what our ego or what our mental mind thinks that it needs to be versus what we came here to experience.
Oh yeah. Yeah. And let's talk about what fire really is doing. Because you think about what fire does is it transforms the fears, it transforms the shadows, but it also sheds light. So you think about when you're in that alchemical fire and you've created a vision for your life that's aligned with your heart, that's what East will help you discover within yourself. And then you're taking those steps forward. You're like, I'm going to do this. it's like that, first of all, is monumental, because a lot of people, they'll have an idea about what they want to create, but there's so many things that are in the way of that creation. And then when they finally do it, they get so excited. And then you'll notice, like, when people are creating their dreams in the beginning stages, you'll get so excited, and then you'll freak out. You're like, holy cow, now I'm overwhelmed. I'm actually here.
Yeah.
I can't.
How is this happening?
Like, I'm actually creating my dreams now. And it's like, even at that point, when you're actually moving towards what you really want, you can go through a period of fear, because you're not making excuses anymore. You're not hiding behind like why you shouldn't do something, or blaming this person or that belief. You're just saying, I'm going to do it.
Yeah.
And then you're left with the true shadow.
Holy smokes. That's a lot.
Yeah. And that true shadow is usually the fear of failure, the fear that it won't be good enough, the fear, like, what if it does fail? And then what am I going to say to the people when I made these changes? And then when you move through that fire of fear, that's what creates the transformation. You can't heal or grow unless you're willing to stand in the fire.
Absolutely.
You have to just do it.
I just keep thinking about, I'm so visual, but I was thinking about when one of our first calls, like maybe a month or so in, we were talking about shadow work, and you were trying to help me walk through, because you never say, hey, this is it. You help guide this conversation. And I was so resistant to stepping into that shadow work, to stepping into releasing and letting go, because it defined who I was. And who I was before I started working with you. And we did all these sacred ceremonies and really dived into my multidimensional self. I was playing so small, and I felt confined. I wanted to be bigger, but I didn't think that it was possible. And it scared me, like, to the next level of really being vulnerable and stepping into that space of letting go, because we spend our whole life, we have generations of labels that define who we are. And then all of a sudden, when it's not aligned with us, it's like, well, now what? This was who I've been told I need to be, how it's come down. How do I change that perspective? What's the next? Like, it was intimidating, but I went through a ton working with you in that space. And also, I wouldn't go back and change it for the world, because it was just what my spirit needed.
Absolutely. And you realized how confining those labels are. So it's like when you finally face the fears and you release those labels through that fire of transmutation or transformation, it's so liberating, because you're like, wait a minute, I can recreate myself, because really the truth of who I am is eternal anyway.
Yes.
This doesn't define me. I'm so much bigger than this. So now I get to choose in confidently with my power. Like, I get to choose into something, saying, is this aligned?
Is this my choice?
With my heart? Like, is this aligned with what my joy is? What I truly desired, what the beauty I want to create for my life? And then you choose in from a different angle. And then it's like you're able to allow that fire of fear to transform you, because you realize that those fears have nothing on you. They don't define you. You can be in the fire and the fear, and yet still remember like who you are. And that's what gets you to the next level, because if you get caught up in that space, like, what now? Who am I? I'm like, that's when you need to come back to yourself and say, hun, you're not any of those things. That's why that whole burning of the labels was so important. That ceremony we did.
Yes.
Because in the beginning, when they burn all the ideas of their labels and their roles, every single person after that be like,
what?
It's like they're in this place of like in between, like, now what?
Yeah.
Who am I? And it's at that point, I'm like, you just are.
Right.
That's where you get to reconnect with who you are and to release the ideas. Because they're too small. They're too tiny for you.
And I think that opens you up to fully being able to experience what the world has to offer. And as we know, as we've talked with Dana, we've discovered about emotions. It kind of shifts us into the West, which is all about emotions. It's the water. It's our emotions And so it's something that we also need to explore and cleanse. And as we're creating this sacred space, we also call in the emotions and the energy of the West, because that is such a sacred and holy experience here that it fully gives us the opportunity to be in this physical form.
Yes. And so many people are so afraid to
Oh,
feel
yeah.
because they feel that what they feel defines them, and it doesn't define you. It is an experience. And in fact, emotions are energy in motion.
Yeah.
And but there's a catch here, because when I say that, I'm not shaming the emotions, because when you are trying to manifest that what you want to bring into your life, it's so important to not only visualize what you want to bring into your life, but the next step of manifestation is to feel it. Like, how do you feel having this in your life? Like, do you feel the joy? Do you feel the satisfaction? Can you smell it? Can you taste it? Can you hear it? Can you really feel into the whole experience of having that in your life right here, right now? And that is the juice. That is what gets energy moving. Because if you disconnect from your emotion and you have just a visualization, there's no gas. There's no gas to that,
Yeah.
visualization in your life. It'll stay stagnant right here.
Yeah.
But if you have energy and you have that emotion and you embrace it and say,
Yes.
this is what I get to, this is the cauldron of inside of myself. I'm mixing this up. I'm feeling it. I'm tasting it. I'm seeing it, and I'm putting it out there. And then the third step of that manifestation is just immense gratitude. And when you think of gratitude, that is the receiving part of your heart chakra. That completes the circle. Because if you think of energy moving out this way, then it comes back and it returns to you, to your heart, and then it manifests in your
form.
reality, into form. So it completes the circle. And my favorite card in the tarot is the Ace of Cups.
Yes.
Because it's water overflowing the Holy Grail, which is your heart, your soul. The water overfloweth. And that's coming into the mastering of water in your life.
Yes. And I love, as we've kind of talked about, air, fire, and now water. When it comes to creating sacred space, I love everything that you shared, especially in the manifestation of like knowing that all like that flow of things. Is I love to incorporate water when I'm creating sacred space.
Oh, yeah.
I love to add the elements in all those ways. With the air, I'll either have incense, or I'll start with sage or Palo Santo, cleansing and clearing. And then I go into the space of maybe I light a candle, and that candle brings in the fire. And I am one who loves oils, or who loves Florida water or rose water. And so I'll also incorporate that when I'm opening up my space, because I want to incorporate all of that, all of the elements that Mother Earth has given us to fully create this beautiful space. And water is something that I work with a lot with people. I work with their emotions, connecting to loved ones. And so I love to incorporate the water to kind of help ease the stress, ease the emotion.
It does.
And then it clears it out.
Calms things down.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Oh, I love all of that. And of course, I'm a water sign. And when were you born again?
I'm May. I think that I'm a Taurus.
You're Taurus, you're Earth sign.
I'm an Earth. Yeah.
No wonder we're such great partners.
Yes. I always forget, but it is Earth. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, and what I love about water too is that if you feel overwhelmed, water reminds you that, to piggyback on what you're saying, that you can use water to help bring peace, clarity, calm energy. And so if you're feeling a lot of chaotic energy in your life, and you feel worked up and you have a lot of anxiety, a lot of worry, we recommend as medicine women working with the element of water, because that kind of cools the fires down. Because sometimes when you have too much fire energy in your life, then that can create feelings of anxiety and chaos. You can think of a fire burning a forest down. It can create damage. And so when we come across people like that, or even in our own lives, that's the perfect time to take your Epsom salt baths with your essential oils, or to use the diffusers
yes.
in your home, or use a little fountain. We can hear the trickling of water, or spend time near bodies of water like streams and lakes.
And you can like listen to music, like listen to the streams and stuff, but I feel like it's more impactful when you actually incorporate the water.
Yes.
Because it can be like, oh, well, I'm going to listen to me like trickling water, which is great if that's what you have. But if you can incorporate actually using water, a body of water, a bath, even having the water running for a little while, you know, you don't have to spend hundreds of dollars to get information like that or to receive those things. But it's like what you can incorporate each day as well.
I love that. The tangible.
Yes.
And that's why we love sacred ceremony again, and creating sacred space, because it really makes things, those metaphysical lessons and the things that we learn, really bring it into a tangible form.
Yes, because as I've said many times, we're spiritual, we're spirit and physical. So creating sacred space and sacred ceremony helps us physically experience a spiritual concept or a spiritual intention. Exactly. I would say
it increases the power of intention too, because it's like when you're holding something solid, or let's say you're connecting with water and you're sprinkling rose water or Florida water in the Incan tradition, or you're using essential oils, what we connected to West as well, then you're connecting in with that energy and making that solid form. And then it's increasing the power of your intention and focus.
Yes.
So, and there is a tangible difference that you feel in the energy. Yeah. Oh gosh. And north. Yeah. Talking about earth and connecting with your ancestors.
Yes, it's so beautiful.
And connecting with your roots, the symbol of the tree and how the roots go into the ground. I mean, your ancestors represent the roots, the things that help you stay grounded in this life.
It's the roots of who you came from. Mm-hmm. So it's that deep rooted area. It's that deep space within. Yeah. And I find that so many times when people connect to their ancestors or do family history or to learn about where they came from, like this new form of confidence, this new space, this new opening happens. And I love that we're talking about this now, because we talked about cycles, how Mother Earth naturally has these cycles. She has all these elements. She has all of these things, directions that we live off of every single day, right? She has all these cycles in which we go within.
The natural seasons were like the cycles, and evolution is a cycle. It's like,
so calling on the north just completes that cycle. It's like refiner's fire. We go from seeing things from a high perspective, to the fire, to feeling our emotions, to being connected to who we are, where we came from, bringing us back into this moment, physically being here, enjoying being outside, and creating that space is just so beautiful to connect in, to honor that, to love that, but also not make it wrong, because we did come from somewhere. Yes. And regardless of whether or not we are happy with our upbringing or what's been passed down from generation to generation, creating sacred space and sacred ceremony can help you change those things that you're not so fond of. Yes. But also it's acknowledging that and honoring that, but that doesn't have to define you. And sacred ceremony can really help remove those things.
Well, and what I love too about North and connecting with ancestors, we hear so much about, which we do ancestral healing and we work with ancestral healing. But when you do an ancestral healing ceremony, it's not just about releasing and the things that happened, the stories and the traumas and the things that the patterns that the family had that were toxic, or and that you're releasing that, saying, okay, this doesn't serve my future. So I'm releasing those things that don't serve me, that are connected to my ancestral past. But the other part of that ceremony is to remember that your ancestors also bestowed gifts and strengths. Now, we talked about,
most of the time people don't acknowledge
that. They don't acknowledge that. They focus so much on the negative that they forget that the reason it's important to connect with your ancestors is because if you can connect in with your ancestral roots and the gifts and the strengths that they gave you, which is symbolic of the guardian of the north, which is the buffalo, which represents the strength, the perseverance, the fearlessness energy, right? Then you can take those gifts and you can truly integrate them and expand on those gifts.
Yes.
And incorporate that into your life and make it more beautiful.
And it's powerful too, because throughout sessions, people will acknowledge there's this generational clearing or the generational pattern. And a lot of times it's like just being aware of it and you making a decision to change each day.
Mm-hmm.
Because there are times where we do this deep healing, we do this clearing, but sometimes we feel like, oh, it didn't really take, or I'm still struggling with that. Well, it doesn't mean that's just going to fully go away right away. I mean, there are times where that will be lessened or even taken away, but it's also making that decision, moving that forward. It's motion. You're making that contribution. You're taking that step, because action is part of this physical journey. We can't just sit back and wait for everything to happen. We can manifest things, but that doesn't mean we're sitting in our house not doing anything.
Mm-hmm.
We're creating, but we're also putting intention and putting energy and moving it forward.
I love that you mentioned it, because it reminded me of the quote, it's not the destination, it's the journey. It's the journey, not the destination. If that is happening and you've released in sacred ceremony, I'm releasing this, it's not going to look necessarily the way you think, because there is an unraveling that occurs. And the reason why there's a process where you're kind of like unraveling it from you, or that you're shedding it away, is because there's information, there are diamonds of wisdom that you're supposed to be gathering as this is shedding away. And there's a process. If you were just to go straight to the end and you weren't able to retrieve that, then you're kind of discounting those soul agreements that you had to learn certain things or to experience certain things in this human journey. And that is the beauty of it. You may not, what's so awesome about that process though, is it's so conscious. It's not like you're just going through life unconscious and you're repeating the patterns of your ancestors that were toxic or unhealthy. And you're just kind of going, and you're kind of like a mummy, going through life. When you're doing a sacred ceremony and you're transmuting this energy, there's an unraveling that happens. And all of a sudden it's like, wow, I really get what I needed to learn about this. And then you're able to retrieve that diamond, and then it naturally falls away. Like once you're able to retrieve it, that will be the end.
It will
just dissipate and go away.
Yes.
And it's so empowering because you do it in a conscious way when you participate in sacred ceremony.
Yeah, it's that intention.
Yeah.
Intention is everything when it comes to anything sacred. And I love that because it fades away, but it's setting the intention. And then it's not saying, oh, I'm going back to my old ways. Like you're literally changing patternings. You're changing how you view life. You're aware of that. You're consciously aware of those choices that you're changing. And so when we call upon sacred direction and we open up this space after we've cleared it, we've cleansed it, we've called upon the directions, we go into above and below together. So as we call upon the direction of those above us, our guides, our higher beings, God, whoever it is that you look towards, your spirit guides, you're calling upon them to say, hey, I've been able to create this sacred circle in the physical form. Now I'd love for you to be with us, to bring in guidance, higher information, your love, your light. Help me remember who I am. And then we go onto the ground, we go and talk to Mother Earth. We thank her for all that she's done for us.
She does so much for us every day.
Yeah, like we wouldn't be here if it wasn't for Mother Earth. She gives us everything we need to achieve, to move forward in this space. So calling upon her, I always like to think above and to think below. As I call them in, just like, thank you so much for all you've done. Thank you for this gratitude, like just full of love and full of light. And I always find myself wanting, especially when we got started at first, wanting to bless Mother Earth.
Yes.
Like it was constantly, instead of saying, please be with me, it was like, how can I bless you? Like, thank you so much for all you do. I bless you for your wisdom, for your strength. And like bringing that blessing, you're bringing that gratitude in, but you're aligning in this beautiful flow of energy. You're connecting into that universal truth.
I love that. And it was so funny. I was just having this conversation with my son the other day about love languages.
Mm-hmm.
And he goes, I'm such a gifter. I love to give things, all the time. He goes, really, all I need though is someone just to say thank you. I don't need them to do the same thing back, because if the person I love just says thank you, that they recognize it, it just makes me so happy and fulfilled, because he's a words of affirmation.
Yeah.
And it's like, we can't underestimate the power of just saying thank you, of just recognizing the sacrifices that Mother Earth makes for us every single day. We're not easy.
Yeah. We're not.
Human beings are not easy.
Think about as a mom or as a parent.
Yeah.
You have a stubborn kid who keeps doing their way, and you're like, I have all these things for you. Mother Earth provides all of that.
Yeah. Without like asking for anything back.
Yeah.
And so it's like being able to respect her. And, when I connected with Mother Earth, I learned a lot about what love is.
Yes.
And what cultivates love in your life. And love it creates an expansion. It creates growth. It is the foundation of things that last. And when I started to recognize Mother Earth's all of her offerings to my life, I really understood like what was the root of love. Like love is based off of respect and kindness and holding space and all of these different things. And it's so interesting that I was able to really process that lesson for myself and in my relationships.
Yeah.
When I just gave recognition to Mother Earth, and you think about the pollution and the different things that we experience in this world. If everybody had that same level of awareness and respect, I guarantee that we would treat our planet differently. I guarantee it.
Mm-hmm.
And so I love this part of creating sacred space, because it reminds you of that.
It does.
And that is so powerful. Those are such powerful lessons.
It is beautiful. Thank you so much for listening. We are just so blessed for all the support that we have. And we cannot wait to continue on this conversation next week, talking more about sacred ceremony as well as how this can benefit your life. So please stay tuned. We can't wait to share more with you.